Hi everyone, thanks for listening to Leverage Your Potential. I'm your host today, Kelly Davis, Assistant Director of Internships, Career Services, and Study Abroad at Menlo College. Today's episode is a discussion I had with Dr. Annika Steiber and 3 Menlo students, Xinan Li, Yuanyuan Shen, and Carey Lee, about an especially innovative management model, the Rendanheyi Model. Dr. Steiber is the director of the Rendanheyi Center at Menlo College, as well as Menlo's Director of Partnerships and Innovation, all in addition to her teaching roles. We hope you enjoy the episode and listen through to the end, when we announce a special opportunity at the Rendanheyi Center at Menlo College.
Hi, I'm doing very well, and I'm so happy to be part of your podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is good. I'm going to be learning a lot today, so I'm really excited to jump in. But first, we're also here with Annika's 3 interns who are all Menlo College students. So we have Carey Lee, Xinan Li, and Yuanyuan Shen, who also sometimes goes by Ashley, but we're going to go with Yuanyuan today. So thank you very much, all 4 of you, for being here with us today. We're going to hear more from our interns and / students in just a little bit. But I'm going to dive right in first and ask Dr. Steiber, why did you recommend to have this new center be established at Menlo College?
That is a very, very good question, Kelly. So I've been studying Silicon Valley for the last 10 years. And in fact, Silicon Valley is known to be the innovation hub of the world, right? But when we talk about Silicon Valley, it's all about technology innovation. And most companies here are not actively talking about management innovation. And we know that management innovations are maybe even more important for competitiveness today than maybe technology innovations. And we also know that both those innovations need to coexist. So if you want to become very, very good on technology innovation, you also have to be doing management innovation, which means that you change your way of leading people, you change your way of organizing your company, you change your way of doing R&D and innovation in your company, and so on and so forth. But to come back to the fact that Silicon Valley actually doesn't really speak about management innovation, I thought that could be an excellent opportunity for Menlo College to create a center that is focusing on the absolutely newest trends in management, and then specifically on management innovations from all over the world. So what we are going to try to do is to understand the newest trends that are not part of any school books yet. We're going to create the new school books. We're going to create the new management curriculum that hopefully will be inspiring other faculties and students, but also business leaders, and create the school books for the future.
That is a really ambitious goal, but a really exciting one. And I think that leads us to wonder why is it called the Gondon Center, which I just said, I think, with a German R inflection there, but what does that mean, and what's the background? Where is this coming from?
Yeah, so Rendanheyi it stands for a great management innovation, which is holistic. It's consisting of more or less a transformation of a whole company. It's very few companies in the world, specifically industrial firms, that are doing manufacturing and coming from sort of the older generation companies that have been successful to transform their companies. One company have done that, and the company is called Hire, and they call this model the Rendanheyi Model. So it's world famous. It's studied by most of the management gurus of today, like Gary Hamel, for example, that everyone knows about, has been studying this model for years, and so I. And the name specifically means that employees or people in the organization should always front the user. We should always be, focusing on the user, and it's not only the user on the market, but the user in front of us, wherever we are. Sort of, if we are creating financial services within the company, we have users as the business units, for example. And when we do that, when we do face the users, the people working in the company will also be able to share the wealth. So they're going to earn money on how good they actually serve the users. And it's in a traditional company that is not happening. In a traditional company, you have employees, and employees can be focused on, technical objectives or whatever. They might not focus on the user, and they are definitely not getting a share of the wealth created from those users. They get a salary, and it doesn't matter how good they are, they get the same salary. And if they're very successful, they might climb up a ladder in the hierarchy and get a little bit higher salary. But, very few people in the organization get the real money, right? The wealth created. So this name is symbolizing a number of trends that we have seen over the last decades. It actually started already with the total quality management trend and the lean trend, in the 1970, 1980, when we started to focus on, for example, the customer focus and the user focus, and we started to question the leadership of organization. And it was a number of trends already then that we see in this model. But the new thing is this wealth, sharing of wealth, and it's also the sharing of wealth from an ecosystem perspective. So the company is not just the company anymore. The company is part of an ecosystem. So when you look at the wealth creation, you look at it from the company's perspective, but also how good the company is actually making it in the ecosystem, which is totally innovative and new. So we thought that the name was just symbolizing a number of very, very important management trends, both, previous trends that we still have, but also totally new trends, like the ecosystem organization and this, looking at employees in a whole new way, and so on.
And I'm over here taking vigorous notes. It's like I'm in class. I'm fascinated.
Yes. This is actually, it's symbolizing actually the latest we know in management, and it's very hard. I mean, if you try to understand this the first time you see it, it's like, oh my God, can you think like that? I've never seen that in any company in the US or in Europe or in the Western world. So it's pretty awesome. It's pretty fascinating.
Certainly representative of those ambitious goals that you're trying to achieve. So Annika, you now have the 3 interns. Before we ask the interns why they chose to take this internship, what was the impetus behind getting 3 interns on board?
So I wanted to dig deeper into the model, and as I already said, it's a complex. When I try to understand the Google model in 2009, 2010, 2011, that was hard. Okay, because it was like symbolizing something that I didn't recognize. And it's always hard when you try to apply old organizational theories and old HR theories and like things like that on an animal that is totally new. It's hard to interpret, to conceptualize. So I decided that I really would, one, I need help. And 2, I thought this could be an interesting opportunity for a number of Menlo College students, because I know that there is a market, there's a need out there. So I think that if you have been learning about those new things, it could be an interesting knowledge to have to do an interesting career. So I reached out, and fortunately I got 3 great candidates.
Yes, and now we're going to hear from them. So we have Carey, Xinan, and Yuanyuan. And Carey, if you wouldn't mind starting us off, what interested you in participating in this particular internship?
Yeah, so I think as Dr. Steiber mentioned earlier, like it was just a Rendanheyi, like the business model itself is very, very innovative, and like there's just nothing like it out there in the Western world just yet. And so when she first approached me about it, like I was very intrigued, because it's like, I've never heard of this before. That seems like something that would be really interesting to kind of like read on about. And, I mean, I feel like the more, I guess, well versed you are, and like just kind of like the more you kind of know, it's really going to serve you later, just so like you kind of have different ideas of like management. Or like me as an international management major, like it was we were studying like a model from a company who is from China. So I thought it'd be really interesting to also kind of get the viewpoint of companies that aren't in the Western world, or like they're not from here, and their I guess just mindset and mentalities are different. So I thought it'd be really interesting to kind of dig deep and like get to know this a little bit better.
All great reasons. And I'm going to jump to Yuanyuan. What have you learned about this new management model in the process of doing this internship?
So I have found a lot about this management model. The Rendanheyi model is very innovative, and it's different from most of management model. It's put more focus on the customer's experience and the growth of employees. So in my part, I'm doing research about the model itself. There are 6 elements framework, 3 tools, and organizational structure, and also some digital tools. We also have several case studies which are very interesting. So it will be difficult to explain all of these in this podcast, but the most impressive part to me is the organizational structure. So Hire has a huge and interactive network for their employees. They don't have traditional middle managers as most of companies. Instead of that, they have creators, which is individual employee, MEs, which are micro enterprise, and EMCs, which are ecosystem micro community. As what we have learned from the interview with Hire, we can know that each of them are not above others. They are small ecosystem lives in a tropical rainforest created by Hire. And also to increase efficiency of working, Hire uses 3 tools and digital tools instead of traditional framework. For 3 tools, we mean 1 diagram, 1 table, and 1 card. So the 1 diagram is EMC contract chart. It combines with the Asian Chinese philosophy of yin-yang and show the balance inside the whole ecosystem. And 1 table is win-win value-added statement, which Xinan will explain with more detail later. So 1 card is Rendanheyi scorecard. It's designed to provide a self-assessment scale for the enterprise, which aims to learn Rendanheyi approach and to provide structural guidance on the transformation and upgrading of the enterprise. So for the digital tools part, we are still in the process of learning, and we believe that we will be able to know how they work in the future and show them to students inside Menlo or outside Menlo.
So you've been learning a lot. Is all of this what you joined the internship for? Do you think it would interest other students as well?
Yeah, I think this will interest other students because we are a business school. So in my opinion, it is always important for us to know and learn about the business trend. And I believe Rendanheyi management model will be a new trend in the future because this management model is closely connected with the age of IoT, which stands for Internet of Things. As I have said for the last question, so Hire uses digital tools instead of traditional paperwork to increase efficiency. They also have many projects that benefits people with digital tools they created. So in one of our case study, we are showing the U-Vaccine project of Hire, and the U-Vaccine applies the digital technology of IoT. The accuracy of vaccine storage management and vaccination process can be approved by U-Vaccine. So the negligence of human judgment can be reduced, which is an effective way to ensure the vaccination safety. So by this example, we can know that management model like Rendanheyi can give customers or the society a safer and more effective life, which most of us are chasing for. So I believe it is essential for students in our school to know or to learn how this management model works and how to even create a company just like Hire.
Well, you've certainly convinced me. I think that I need to take a class on this or something. I'm learning so much. So Zinran, before I ask you to go in a little bit more depth about the win-win value added statement, what brought you to this internship?
Okay, actually, all I knew at the first was that this internship was to research Hire's business model. When Professor Steiber mentioned the words Rendanheyi, I didn't know what it meant. She said this intern would be innovative and challenging, and I'm interested in this Chinese company, and I wondered what do the Western people think about this business model. So I agreed to do it.
That's really great. Something that is particular about what you just said in your situation is that you're kind of doing this cross-cultural comparison. So that is definitely an appealing factor to understand how other countries even do business. So thank you for sharing that. And so Zinran, you focus on, as Yuanyuan mentioned, the win-win value added statement. And that seems to be a really important part of the Rendanheyi model. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and we know that the traditional three financial statements are the balance sheet, the cash flow statement, and the income statement. So three traditional financial statements are used by the traditional company to measure only the economic values of their business. The win-win value added table is Hire's unique table, which is also known as Hire's force table. It is used to value a company's ability to continue to create economic values. The traditional pattern of economics is diminishing marginal returns, but the win-win value added table can realize the increasing marginal returns. In addition, other tables only have trading customers, while the win-win value added table shows interactive users. American economists believe that the competitiveness of enterprise in the 21st century depends on who has more lifelong users, and the win-win value added table can generate lifelong users. The central to the Hire's Internet of Things strategy, micro enterprise were tasked with evolving their business from selling products to transactional one-time customers to building an ecosystem of the interactive lifelong users in which ecosystem revenues would exceed hardware revenues. Therefore, you can think of it this way. The win-win value added form has become a effective supporting and driving tools for Hire's strategic transformation and development in the Internet of Things.
Thank you, Zinran, for explaining that to us. And do you think this is an important concept for finance majors like yourself to research and learn about?
Yes, the existence of a win-win value added statement actually caused a change in the public perception of marginal revenue. As I said before, the traditional pattern of economics is reducing marginal returns, but the win-win value added table can realize increased marginal returns. But in today's networked world, we do need to learn tools like win-win value added statements that add value through non-financial metrics such as the value created and shared by web users. In the future, I think more and more companies will take the win-win value added statement as the first table to find out the potential value of their own companies. Therefore, I think it is important for finance students to understand the win-win value added form. Yeah.
Maybe I can add something there as well. The fascinating thing here is actually exactly as Xinan is saying, that even if you as a company is short term doing well financially, the win-win value add, which is looking more from an ecosystem perspective, can show you that you might not be doing very well long term. Because if you don't create value in your ecosystem, but you're doing temporary good value as a company, it could be an indication that you're on the downhill, and you will after a while be killed because you don't play that important role in the ecosystem anymore. So what they have done is that the old traditional statement is all from within. They're looking from the old traditional way of a company, and looking at the income and the balance sheet and the cash flow, but they don't integrate that with how well the company is doing from an ecosystem perspective. And so this is maybe one of the most innovative things that this company have developed, and I have never seen anything like this anywhere in the world. So I do hope that we will be able to provide this in the financial major in the future.
And I'm don't have a business background, so forgive me if this is already in your face, but it sounds very much like this kind of almost interdisciplinary thought, and that's what brought about that innovative aspect to this model. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
No, but I think you're right. I think it's a newer way, as Xinan said again. It's definitely changing the perspective of looking at the company and the value created by the company, and how the company need to look from different perspective in order to make sure that the value creation is not just short term for the next year, but also in a long term. And what you mentioned, go from a transactional view on a customer, that I sell this toaster to a user, and in the best case that user will come back and buy a next new toaster in 5 years or whatever. It's a transaction, right? But in this model, they think about a lifetime customer, and you can sell a lot of different things to the same user, and that therefore maximize also the lifetime value of the user. So you go from this transaction based and product based view to just look from the user. What does the user need, right? And that might mean that you need to collaborate with other companies that complement your own business, so you can provide whatever the user needs. So it's a whole new way of thinking how you work as a business.
Definitely. I mean, one thing I've learned about working in higher education is that it's apparently a very collaborative field, and I can't imagine something that isn't, and it's something I value so much. I'm happy to hear that that's something that's being explored further in the business realm. So thank you, Xinan and Annika, for giving us a kind of a deep dive on that added value statement. Carey, what has your focus been during this internship? Do you want to share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, so for me, my focus was, so Ashley or Yuanyuan did the actual model itself, whereas Xinan mainly focused on I guess the finances. And for me, I think one of the big goals that Dr. Steiber had was how would we be able to translate this into a new, just another company? Can we replicate this? And so what I focused on in my research was the transformation of Hire as a company, and what other companies as well, especially ones in the Western world, for example, who follow a pretty traditional kind of corporate pyramid model, how would they be able to, I guess, take from and learn from Hire, and I guess transform their own company into something kind of Hires, where they can better serve their users and customers, and also kind of just work more efficiently within the company and with the other parties and external kind of, I guess, partners that they would work with. So I focused a lot about how how can, I guess, companies transform in terms of like the organizational structure? Like how can they transform in terms of like digital technologies? What would be involved in those things? And then as well as, I think the most important part about adapting this kind of model into like a traditional company, for example, I think and one of the biggest, I guess, lessons learned from this model in general is the fact that like the mindset is very, very different from the traditional. Like, I think most employees and workers kind of just know that there is at least one other person above you and they have more power than you, obviously, and you're just their subordinate who has to follow their orders and stuff. But in this model, it's completely like you are your own boss, you're your own CEO, and you get a lot of decision making power on your own, and you can use that power and the resources that you can get from your company to better serve your customers, and then also just kind of, I guess, self-actualize in your own right, like kind of just be your own entrepreneur and not think of work as a total drag or anything like that, essentially.
Sure. Well, what that makes me think of is I've had some conversations with other professionals about how particularly Generation Z is supposed to be very entrepreneurial, want that independence. But there are some issues in this world that are really going to take a collective action, and there are just some things where there might be organizations already out there fixing the problem or trying to, and you just need more cohesion or collaboration. Even though it would be great if everyone could have their own business, I personally don't see that as being effective in society, right? Because you need that collaboration, and it's sounding more and more like this model is providing kind of a solution to that, to kind of allow people to have that agency, but also work collectively on these issues. At least that's how I'm coming from it, from the kind of a social sciences background, but really interesting stuff. And Carey, do you think that there's anything else that Menlo students or students in general might be able to learn from the change that's happened to this organization and your research?
Yeah, actually, before, like, I guess in some of my previous classes that I've taken at Menlo, like, you hear things like terminology like bureaucratic and bureaucracy and stuff. And like, for me, I never really understood. I kind of just knew that it had more of like not a super great connotation to it, but like, I think with this, like, after like doing research about this model and learning what bureaucracy is and how this model is like completely like just addressing that and destroying it, and like just improving upon like how they can do better, right? So I think one of the biggest things that would be great for others to learn about too is obviously like it is great to have like a solid structure, but I think one of the like what you mentioned earlier, like Gen Z is super like entrepreneurial and stuff, and I think like the business models that traditional corporations and companies have now, like they worked like back in the 20th century, but right now we are entering, I guess, a new era, and like as we mentioned earlier, also just the IoT era. So I think one of the biggest things that would be good for business students to learn is just a new way to kind of run an organization, because like one of the biggest things that I learned when doing my research is that, yeah, like our traditional kind of model, I mean, it did work before, but I think there is definitely a better way to do it. And this, I think, comes a little bit closer to like having things run more efficiently and stuff. So.
And I can echo that, what Carey said. I mean, I think there's a possibility for company continue with the old tall organization as we have had for the last 120 years, but the price will be that they will not be competitive. I mean, so again, coming back to what I started to say, management innovations and technology innovation are, they are coexisting, and they are like sister and brothers, or they are like siblings, and they need to coexist. And if we are in an era of internet technology everywhere, everything's connected, all things are connected to the internet, we already know, and we knew that already based on research from American researchers in the 1990s, when information technology started to take off, that we don't need that many layers of management. We can flatten out the organization pretty much, because you can more or less, if you just allow decentralization of decision power with information technology, you can make sure that everyone is informed and have the data that they need to make sound decision making. But you need to let that control go. You need to change. And I think many organizations, they cannot do that, because many managers, they don't want to lose that power. Isn't that a wonderful thing to have power? They don't want to lose that. I mean, and I think that will be the killer. That will be the killer of most organizations that are not adhering to this, because here we have organizations that are empowering people and have them motivated and have them incentivized by sharing the wealth to run like crazy. You have like 100,000 people running like crazy. And then you compare to a normal organization where maybe 15% are running like crazy, and the rest are unsatisfied and just longing to leave the work by 4 or 5 and get home and have some fun time. So it would be very hard to compete if you have that enormous energy in a company and then compare with a company that cannot energize your employees. So the whole new view of how you energize and how you motivate people, it's you mentioned yourself the Generation C, and people are very well educated today, And it's also interesting what you said, Kelly. You mentioned that from your sociological view that those companies, it's maybe not good that they sort of run just by themselves, but they need to collaborate. And that is, Carey, right? That was something you found in your research as well, because they try to have those independent strategic business unit, but they found out that it didn't really work. So that was part of their evolution. Do you want to say anything about that, Carey?
Yeah, I guess just to kind of add on to the, like independent units were, I think in theory, like work out very well, but higher, I guess, realized that like it was hard to kind of have these like independent units like contract and negotiate with each other, just because everyone was looking to maximize their own success. And so it was important that, yes, that there's autonomy and independence to some degree, but I think the main way to address that would be to also kind of like make it so that like, yes, you have that power, like decision making power, but also it'd be really helpful for you to be able to collaborate with others. I mean, like it's kind of like help me help you, where like in between the different independent units. But also, I mean, the ultimate goal is to make the customer and the end user happy. So if people can collaborate and kind of get to that goal, the end goal, like faster and better and more efficiently, like that would be, I guess, the optimal just way to maximize everything.
And when I hear the words, things like sharing the wealth and sharing the power, it makes me happy. And I think about my grandparents or even my parents who hear those terms and sometimes think, communism, and so just to kind of drive some points home, is this the kind of model that can exist within the capitalist structure that the United States functions in today?
So that is the critical question, I would say. That is
a whole other podcast episode, right?
Yeah, let's get you another podcast for that. No, but I honestly, as I started to say, I started to look at Google, and I went out in the world and I spent like 4 years to give lectures on the Google model. Everyone wanted to learn about this new animal because it was so new, and I see a lot of similarities. I mean, Google has the same philosophy. They do try to flatten out the organization, minimize the number of layers, decentralize a lot of decision power, use information technology to get people on the right level, on the local level, to make the right decision. They work in smaller teams. They are independent, but they do also network and collaborate heavily with others. They are geared by the user focus, which is the North Star, right, that guide them to collaborate. So I think what is new in this model is the total decentralization. I mean, at Google, you still have a bigger, like a pretty big sort of normal organization, and you still have functions and all that. This company have killed that. And they have more or less created and they've gone to only using different kind of companies and platforms that support the companies with different kind of services like HR and finance and those kind of thing. And they work like an internet system. It's like you look on an infrastructure, on internet structure, they work like that. Everyone is like different nodes in the infrastructure. It's just a more aggressive next step. So they have more or less taken the whole organizational theory and transferred it over to an internet and network-based model, which I have not seen before. But the basic principles are the same. So, and I, as I said then, and what I say today, I do think that is the way for them to scale very fast. And I think that was one of the most important factors why Google was so successful. And also could attract the most successful people, because the best of the best, they don't want to work in small silos and be directed on what to do and not what to do. That was the old way of working. If you want excellent people, you need to foster an environment, create an environment where they can actually excel and be treated as adults, right? And I think this new model is just a further step, but I do see a lot of similarities. So I do think that some elements are transferable and replicable. Some elements are maybe less replicable because of regulations or history or specific culture. So what I believe, and you should know then that my primary research has been on management innovation for the last 25 years. One thing that we learned when we studied different organization management innovation is that there's nothing like one model. Every time you transfer over something like lean, for example, that we all know about, it's adapted to the new organization. It's adapted to the new organization's history, culture, specific, what they feel comfortable with. And they usually adopt different components in different pace, and they start with things that is making sense for them, conceptual making sense, which is closer to their history, what they've done before. So what would be important is that the Rendanheyi model is that we create component of that or main principles, and then a company can sort of choose. It's like, choosing from a chocolate box. Okay, I want this principle, but I'm not ready for that principle. And this is the way you can do it,
And so I'm sitting here getting just so excited and more interested as we continue to talk. So when can staff sit in on a class, or when can Menlo students be able to access and partake in what the center is going to be doing?
Yeah, so we have a pretty aggressive plan. So the first step is that all Menlo College students will be able to, for free, attend a world-leading conference on management innovation called the Rendanheyi Boundaryless Network Open Talk 2020. And Menlo College the student will be able to, and also faculty, will be able to sign up for free. The conference, I think, will be recorded if you want to see it, afterwards as well. So that is the first step. The second step is that we are going to integrate part of the Rendanheyi model already in the 363 course, the Management for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, as an illustration of a great example how you can try to maximize the user value and the entrepreneurial potential among employees. And then as a third step, we're going to develop a new management curriculum that will be used potentially as a new course at Menlo, but also if other institutions are interested, we will offer that to other schools as well, and also to business leaders. And I want to emphasize that it's not just business, of course, it's healthcare and public organization. So if they would, want to learn about how to build an organization for the Internet of Thing era and a digital age, my hope is that we're going to have something that could be of interest for them.
That all sounds incredible, and I hope to certainly take advantage to sign up and participate. One last final note, just another thing that makes my heart sing is just how much international comparison is happening in this research. And you also have a very international team. And I think that's so incredible. What we can learn from other countries is just so invaluable and helps on that kind of collaboration and innovate, both the collaboration and innovation pieces. So that's kind of been a very interesting and cool part for me to learn about. So thank you all so much. This has been a really great conversation, and I'm very excited to launch this into the world so that our students and beyond can find out about what's happening with the new center. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. In the show notes, we've included a link to access tickets to the International Conference running from September 16th to September 18th, 2020. Tickets are free for Menlo students, faculty, and staff. Remember, you can find Leverage Your Potential on Anchor.fm, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and a few other places. And you can check out our blog at blog.menlo.edu/career-services/. Make it a great day. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Leverage Your Potential podcast. Episodes are posted weekly and can be found on our blog at blog.menlo.edu/career-services/. Make it a great day.